I'm Matt.
I'm Shane.
And if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that thumbs up button real hard, and make sure you subscribe to Comic Movie Marks.
And also click that little bell for all of the notifications.
Whee!
Always remember,
If Trailer Trash can do it,
anyone can do it.
hello and welcome everyone to another Comic Movie Marks video. Woo!
Yeah, Zack Snyder has been busy as shit on Vero, and we're a little behind, but we're going to cover it now.
So the Vero talk with Zack Snyder has been all over the internet. Every time this guy even mentions something on Vero, there's an article about it. And at some point, it kind of got like, okay, well, how much can you really keep talking about this stuff? And that's why we never really evaluated it, broke it down with everybody else. But now it's getting more interesting. And thanks to CBR.com, it's got even better. Thanks for this asshole that came out with this article.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it gives us something to talk about. I want to preface something first that... Shane and I are Zack Snyder fans.
Yep.
Apparently fanboys.
Yes.
Apparently it's bad to like a director. I didn't know that. So I guess you're not allowed to be a Martin Scorsese fanboy or Steven Spielberg fanboy or anything like that. Because apparently just liking a certain artist or a certain person in a unique genre of entertainment is not allowed.
Yeah.
Even if you like Michael Bay, go for it. Who gives a shit?
George Lucas, nope, off the table.
if you like Joss Whedon, all right, cool. You got some problems, but go ahead.
That's for another episode.
But there's no reason to sit there and put in our comment section, get off his nuts, get off his dick, stop sucking this, stop doing that. I don't give a shit. I'm down on my knees and I'm ready to do this. So go ahead and hit that thumbs down now if you don't like Snyder and you want to call him Hack Snyder and all this other shit and that he's boring and he doesn't know what he's doing. Just don't even waste your time with the remaining whatever time of this video is, and just hit the thumbs down now and exit stage left. Waka waka.
Yeah, boom, there we go.
Just get that out there right now.
All right, beautiful disclaimer.
A beautiful lie.
Ooh, nice. All right, so on that, into some of the Vero topics that have come out. This is within the last month or so that I have. There's obviously been other things previously. Some of the stuff that started with found this guy, picture of Henry Cavill, and then he started posting other pictures as well of the Justice League cast, in particular ones that weren't actually in the movie. And then he had some stuff on the black suit. But what we're going to start with is just some of the details that Zack Snyder went into on Batman v Superman. So I'm going to rattle off some of these. One of the first ones was the lead smoke grenade, which had floated around a little bit, and he just puts, fun fact, the smoke grenade that Batman used is indeed lead-based, as evidenced by the markings PB, which is a symbol for lead, and that had been leaked for a while.
Oh, and for people that don't understand.
Yeah, because he says
Superman
like it seems so obvious. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not gonna read that.
And apparently people don't realize that in the medical field and stuff like that, lead is used to block X-ray vision or X-ray. So apparently, because I always remember seeing people saying, well, how does he know with that wheelchair from Walter Keefe? How does he know that he can't see through lead? Because even X-rays use lead.
Yeah, exactly.
To protect people. What do you think that big-ass lead blanket is that gets put over your ass if you get an X-ray?
Right, yeah. Well, and fortunately, Zack Snyder even covers that, and he says it's in the info on the file that he took. Even more so, going into detail that Lex Luthor figured that out, like, and then Bruce Wayne then stole that information. So another picture was someone said, never noticed before 3 crosses. And Zack Snyder says that's a reference to Justice League 2. And Damian H. on Vero says, wait, you just dropped a huge bomb on us. And then Zack Snyder's reply was hashtag until it wasn't. Oof. That hits you right in the nuts, for sure. Speaking of hitting you in the nuts, Ray Fisher, well, I don't know why that's hitting you in the nuts, the emotion. He posted on Vero, life doesn't always go how we plan it. The only thing we can do is keep reaching for what we believe. Hashtag Borg Life, hashtag Love Ray. And it's a picture, awesome picture of him, I'm sure from Clay Anos, Cyborg diving into the end zone.
Well, Victor Stone.
Victor Stone, yeah, in this case. Diving into the end zone in the snow. It's pretty badass. And then Zack Snyder comments and says, believe, at Ray Fisher, hashtag Borg Life. and it's a different angle of the same action thing. Pretty again, more stuff that just punches you in the gut where you're like, son of a bitch, what could have been. So this stuff I actually I took from the Nice Cast because I believe this was on his Vero account. It just started blowing up, and this guy basically goes into a theory. His name is Harag Ferrara. I'm sure I'm butchering that, but he says, I have a theory. Darkseid was behind Bruce's nightmare. Hear me out. We all know that Darkseid is a master manipulator and can reach into minds of his enemies to do his bidding. Bruce would have killed Superman, and Darkseid would have eventually conquered Earth with little resistance. Do you think my theory is far-fetched? Then Zack actually commented and said, I like the way you think, but what in the dream was consistent with someone who had succumbed to anti-life? And the bigger question is, how far in the future is Flash coming from his modified costume suggests a time more in line with the Batman we see looking out over the Omega, and why too soon? It's only after he realizes that this is a man who hasn't met Lois yet, Soldier's Patches. Or Ferrara says, yes, definitely too soon meant he traveled too much in the past. I always believe Bruce gave Flash one simple instruction. If he and his resistant fighters were ever caught, to travel back in time and to warn his young self of the impending doom. Who were you referring to succumbing to the anti-life? So then, unfortunately, Snyder never replied to that. But then in a separate post, he talks about DC Injustice. A gentleman by the name of Danny Aguirre asked if he was planning on entering some sort of Injustice storyline. And Zack Snyder basically says, I get what you mean, but it's more related to the world in the films, not necessarily Injustice. Then some other stuff referring to Bruce's dream. Josh Costella on Vero says Bruce's dream, at least the part where Barry talks to him, was definitely real. The papers are floating through the air in the background when he wakes up. And then Zack Snyder commented at Josh Costella, real. So, basically confirming. And I think there actually was another exchange regarding the dream sequence being real. This actually wasn't a dream when Flash shows up. Zack Snyder also on Vero posted, he says, this is an easy one. There is a Mapplethorpe painting above Bruce Wayne's bed, and he says, I chose to represent the erotic as a drug that Bruce uses sex, momentarily forget about his pain. And then another one was a gentleman or someone by the name of Moen says Zack Snyder was there a Jason Todd story in BvS. And then Zack Snyder says, what makes you think that's Jason Todd? Which a lot of people are kind of like, so he is now saying, well, maybe that's actually Dick Grayson, even though Jason Todd is typically the one who passes away or, who dies at the hands of Joker in the comics. So that's kind of interesting. And then another one, which I felt this was really intriguing, that the trailer for Batman v Superman, a trailer, was released on Good Friday, and Zack Snyder says, released on Good Friday, and no one noticed all of this, just the people who cared to.
Which you can say a lot about everything with Batman versus Superman, or in the Snyderverse in general.
Yep, yeah, absolutely, and all of these Easter eggs for sure. So those are just some of the few things. There's been other small exchanges as well on Vero. So just a lot of going into more detail, a lot of the Easter eggs. Some of these I had heard about prior to. Some of them I didn't. And then, just some additional things like with Ray Fisher as well.
So leading from all that, so Snyder, as you could tell, has been very active on Vero, talking about all these things in his movie. People sending questions back and forth, interacting with him. Seems kind of cool that we have a director that's able to just communicate with fans for the most part. I mean, he's not doing like every single question, obviously, but he's interacting with fans, and that's pretty cool. He's giving some answers, he's explaining things, he's having conversations with them, and that's something unique you don't necessarily always see. Well, somebody at CBR.com named John, I don't know, Arvedon?
Arvedon or something like that.
Arvedon?
Arvedon, yeah. Real quick, I wanted to bring this up. So I found him on Twitter. I'm just kind of curious some of the things that he was saying. And he's at John Arvedon. That's Arvedon. In case you want to get on there and badger him a little bit, but it seems like people already have.
Way to promote bullying.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my bad. I got bullied plenty, and I turned out great. So getting pants in front of chicks, and from a previous episode. Wait,
you said that way too fast. I'm getting pants in front of chicks in another episode.
Yeah. Yeah, remember I go into, it was in our intro for a while, but in a previous episode.
Yeah, but just the way you did it, you said it so fast.
Oh, that I was actually getting pants by some chicks in a different episode while we're recording.
Yeah, we're recording. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Thank you for clarifying. It could have sounded like I was getting blown by a couple chicks while we're recording. Oh, man.
That'd explain it.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. My distraction. He basically posts his article on April 5th, which was yesterday. This was 12:35 p.m. Some people are, they automatically jump in and say, so the title of his article is Snyder's need to explain BvS again and again proves it is not a good film. One person replies, or maybe, just maybe, people are having fun interacting with a filmmaker. Maybe people have an opinion different than yours. Some people also go into, just the fact that individuals like to be spoon-fed, and he's not really going into detail about any plot points. He's basically saying that he's going into more detail about different symbolism and everything that he used in the Batman vs Superman movie. But then this is hilarious, and which is why I wanted to bring this up in the first place. So then he tweets again yesterday afternoon at 4:10 and says, "For the record, I love BvS. I just don't think it's a good film. At least not in the traditional sense. And you know what? That's okay."
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
And people are like, are you fucking on something? One person says, "Laugh out loud, you love a crappy film. That makes no sense, much like your article." Wow. Someone else says, "How the fuck do you say that it's not a good film and still love it? What logic are you applying here, dude? And really, I call bullshit to your article because Rian Johnson does the same thing with The Last Jedi. No articles on that. Am I right?" And then someone else says James Gunn too, but no article on that one that I know of. So it's just popular to write these articles and have people read them, and unfortunately we do, and we're just blown away of oh, how perfect. We were going to talk about this Vero stuff anyways, and this moron decides to write a very clickbaity article and then totally backtracks less than 4 hours later and says, "Oh, just for the record, I love BvS. I just don't think it's a good film."
Julian!
Okay, yeah, because that makes total sense.
And it's already contradictive as it is, as the way he structures this article. First sentence says, "Some of the revelations that have surfaced recently, on the other hand, aren't about symbolism that seemingly no one asked about." But yet his whole fucking article is a bunch of people asking Snyder about what did this mean exactly? What's the symbolism of this? What's the symbolism of that? But according to him, no one asked about this.
Right.
This article it's just full of contradictions and just a guy that clearly wanted some clicks, and he did it. He did this article. I'm not quite sure. He's probably not used to somebody. He's probably used to his Twitter feed being fed "Oh, can you believe this? Can you believe that?" And then when this gets out there and the people that actually like the movie start talking down to him, when they get taken out of their safe space, these little fuckers these days, when they get taken out of that and they actually have people pressing them and asking them "What do you mean by this? What the hell is that about?" Then they crumble. They just fucking crumble because they have no backbone and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, I've kind of tiptoed around the fact that someone like a director is an artist, but I'm gonna flat out say that the Zack Snyder is clearly not only a visionary artist, but we have some other show ideas coming down the pike regarding is he just a visual director? Is he style over substance? That's for a future date. But he is an artist, and I regret tiptoeing around it before. And if you look at most art, all of it is up for interpretation. You have people who will view a piece of art and they will look at it and say, oh, this is what I think the artist is trying to say. In this case, the artist is telling you what he was trying to say, what he was trying to present in each of those scenes. And what has become so intriguing about following this whole thing just kind of on Vero, just open up the floodgates of people giving their theories and him saying, oh yeah, I like that theory. This is where I was going with it. That's all it is people. He's not jumping into plot points and saying, oh no, you're misreading the movie. He's just connecting with fans who are interpreting scenes in a different way. And a lot of people who appreciate the movie have over, the 2 years since it's been released have taken scenes differently. And that's what's so fascinating about his films and the way that he presents them is people can look at each scene and take it, one scene for another. And some scenes are more important. Like Matt and I really enjoy the political aspect of it. And, and the scene with the panel or
the Superman question.
Yeah. Questioning Superman, things like that. That's intriguing to Matt and I, and then other people are viewing it differently. And that's what's just so awesome about this. And it's cool that Vero has allowed for a very smooth correspondence, I guess, for lack of a better term, between the fans and Zack Snyder. Is now he's getting into like, yeah, here's kind of how I was how I was viewing this. Once again, Batman v Superman is still, people are still talking about it, and it's just gaining a cult following. And I do feel like more people, if they're reading this stuff and starting to understand, there's layers to it. It's not just going to be unfortunately spoon fed, and that's where people are like, oh, it's not a good film because it's not simplistic. There's a lot in there that when you're watching it, you're like, your mind is blown.
He already talks about how there's Snyder is offering explanations of obscure Easter eggs. So he's already downgrading these Easter eggs or these moments that he's talking about. And then he puts, if you constantly have to explain the punchline of a joke after you tell it, it's likely one of two reasons. Either the joke is too sophisticated for the audience, or it simply isn't funny. That being said, does Snyder need to still explain BvS after all this time? The fault lies with the moviegoers. Ding! Or is the more likely answer that it lies with the movie itself? Well, motherfucker, what do you think? What the fuck do you think?
Yeah. Well,
he says, for the sake of argument, let's take a look at some of the symbolism and, in quotations, deeper meanings behind scenes in BvS that Snyder has revealed over the past few days. So this dude's already condescending in the whole manner of the situation, and he doesn't look at this as deep moments or symbolism or their obscure Easter eggs, as he's put it. It's just, this guy just doesn't understand. And I could see how people would just look at this stuff and not even notice it. I mean, some of it is kind of weird, like the Mapplethorpe thing. I didn't really, the Mapplethorpe above his bed, I chose to represent the erotica as a drug, that Bruce uses sex as a momentarily forget his pain. I mean, the scene itself is set up in a way that you could tell he's obviously abusing things to hide his emotions. He's fucking, He's got liquor, pills, it looks like shit around him. Even Alfred makes the remark later on, the future Waynes might inherit an empty wine cellar. There's several points where they're talking about he's obviously using this stuff as a coping mechanism for what's going on in his life. And this guy, again, the best he can say is that fair enough, though it also is worth noting that Snyder doesn't appear to be responding to any direct questions about the scene. Instead, it appears he simply took the social media to explain the symbolism by his own volition, which could indicate that he's received inquiries about it in the past, or that he merely felt it needed to be explained. Or he's just sharing shit, you jackass,
right?
Because you're not used to this, to a guy having more than just this to a movie, than just what the spoon-fed shit you see. So he's just offering this extra shit. I don't think that he's been inquired about it before or anything in that manner. It's pretty... To me, in the scenario, it's pretty fucking obvious what he's doing. He's using these things, obviously, to cope. So I don't think it really needs that much explanation, but he's just pointing out one little thing in the back to add additional. So it's not for everyone, you ass clown.
Yeah.
That's not what the purpose is. It's for the, there's a small group of people that will actually understand what that is. So we understand the beer or the liquor, the pills, the bitch. We get all that. But there's going to be that small group of people that will get that other thing in the back. And that's just for them. And that's what he does. It doesn't have to be, it's not for mass appeal. And that's what people don't fucking understand. It's not supposed to be. He has these references. That's why the dumb people like us, we get the liquor, pills, and chick. But then there's those extra people out there that will actually get the Mapplethorpe. They will actually understand that.
Oh, yeah.
So that gives them that little extra connection to the scene. That's what it does. These little things here give you additional information. That's the point. And it's not for everyone. And that's always been the point of a Snyder film. It's not meant for mass appeal. Not everybody is supposed to understand that. Not everybody's supposed to get it. But it is that one extra thing for those people that do understand it to appreciate the movie more.
Yes, exactly, and even on the fact that no one ever prompted him to post this, that's such bullshit, because people have been commenting and posting their own things, and I think he was just enjoying a lot of people, more stuff coming out, and he's like, oh hey, let me contribute to this. Here's another one. Here's an easy one. Here's some. The lead stuff that fortunately I found really entertaining, because so many people bitch about that. He's like, here's an easy one, So that kind of cracked me up. I'm sure that was intentional for sure.
I guess there were people bitching about the spear that Superman used, and so he says, why, with all the technology at his disposal, would Batman build a spear? Here's why, and it shows the crucifixion by the Roman spears him in the side. It's the spear of destiny. That's the symbolism. Mm-hmm. And that's what I always interpreted from the day I saw the movie in theaters. Yeah. That's exactly what I knew it was going to be. People always associate that Snyder is overusing the Christianic symbolism, but I mean, it's been in Superman movies forever. I mean, even Superman Returns did it, where Brandon Routh's Superman is down on his knees, and Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor comes up behind him, has a jagged spearhead of kryptonite, and shanks him in the side. Yeah. Just like Jesus. I mean, it's there. It's the same symbolism. Yeah. It's the same fucking thing. But apparently when Snyder did it, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It becomes a useless weapon. And it's not a useless weapon. What's more reliable? See, that's what people don't seem to understand. That, there's this joke about technology these days. Paper doesn't crash. Computers do. And what's more reliable than a fucking spear? Has anybody ever tried to make a bullet? You think you're going to be able to make a kryptonite bullet and it would actually hold up? It'd probably shatter in pieces as soon as impact.
Right.
As soon as you put that much put that much pressure behind it, it'd probably break apart. It's the simplicity of it. It's what our ancestors did. Bow and arrow. I mean, if you look at the history of the bow, I mean, it's insane. Maybe he could have done a fucking kryptonite bow just like the goddamn comic, The Dark Knight Returns. Maybe it could have been something like that. But this is what it is. It's simplicity. It affects his target, and it will kill his target. It's simple. Very, very fucking simple.
Yeah.
And I didn't know there was that many people apparently bitching about why he would use a fucking spear.
Yeah, I didn't either. It made perfect sense, and I actually enjoy a lot of the connections and stuff that Snyder definitely makes it more apparent of the connection that has been made 1,000 times between Superman and Jesus Christ, and he just goes that extra visual layer, of like in Man of Steel when Clark is in the church, and of course right next, like behind him in the glass is Jesus. It's like he goes that extra mile. But I am blown away, just as you, that people decided to complain about that. It's crazy.
And of course, our buddy here, John, says why, after 2 years, he felt the inclusion of such an allegory bears repeating is anyone's guess. Well, apparently, by reading his caption, there was people bitching about why he would use a spear. So he's just saying this is why he used a spear.
Yep.
Very simple.
With not that hard. Yep, perfect picture on Vero. Here you go. This is why.
Again, and this guy just goes through and he just misses the boat on everything. And it's crazy because it's something that I just really, really am puzzled by, because if for instance, I started thinking about this, another mainstream symbolic philosophical movie that I could think of is like The Matrix.
Yeah.
You know, that movie is full of symbolism, same stuff, Christianic symbolism with Neo, anagram for one. He's like Jesus, the whole fucking thing. It's the Trinity, all that shit. It's nothing but Christianic symbolism, but yet The Matrix is regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time. And yet it has some of the very, very similar symbolism and everything else that people to this day are still breaking down. I remember, recently, one of these big YouTube channels did a thing where Agent Smith is possibly the one. Like, he did this whole breaking down of a theory and shit. I mean, it's just crazy. And they're still breaking down that movie to this day. If the Wachowskis were on Vero or any kind of social media and answering these questions, I'm sure they would be getting the same type of questions and responding in the same type of manner if they did it like that. That's what it is. That's what these type of movies do. They continue to make you think. There's nobody fucking asking the Russo brothers, what did this mean in Civil War?
Right.
Because there is nothing there. There is fucking nothing there to think about. Yeah. It's just A to B to Siberia. That's it. That's the movie. And so we don't need anything more after that. There's no questions going into Infinity War. We don't have anything lingering, really, from the past movies that's going to be drawn in this other than the Infinity Stones. And are the Avengers okay? Are they still shattered? Are they broken apart from Civil War? That's it. That's the only limitations we have from the previous movies, because the MCU movies wrapped up so tightly that they almost become their own movies. There's just these slight tie-ins. But that's all we get. That's all you get. With this one, though, this was building with the Superman anti-life equation. For anybody that doesn't know, because I actually saw a couple people struggling with this because they didn't know exactly what he was talking about. But the anti-life equation, I looked up the definition here to be exact. In Jack Kirby's Fourth World setting, the anti-life equation is a formula for total control over the minds of sentient beings that is sought by Darkseid, who, for this reason, sends his forces to Earth as he believes part of the equation exists in the subconscious. So what he's talking about with the anti-life equation is Superman being at his weakest point, because what we gather, and it's pretty obvious, I thought, that when he says, "You took her from me, she was my world," it was Lois. So he's under the impression that
she was my
that
world.
Batman was responsible for Lois Lane's death. So in some future version of the DC universe, Lois was going to die. So he's blaming Batman, and by the idea or the definition of the anti-life equation means Superman is very susceptible to the anti-life equation and why he would be under the control of Darkseid. It's very similar to that episode or of the Justice League cartoon a long time ago, Justice League Unlimited or whatever it was, and it has a great quote by Batman.
Sacrifice millions of lives just because you don't like this guy?
You don't know Darkseid like I do.
We know he used you, humiliated you, brainwashed you, wound you up like a tin soldier, and turned you loose against Earth. Cry me a river.
And Batman there saying basically Darkseid wound you up, let you loose on the people you love, and you didn't have any control. So that's kind of what the idea is by the anti-life equation. So it really fills this out. It really makes you think that he was building to a big moment in the Justice League movies, because there's supposed to be more than one, but it got kiboshed. So this is why he's additionally explaining some of this stuff, because guess what? His vision wasn't completed. So now he has to explain some of these things that were in Batman versus Superman because he never got to complete the story. It's just like if Lord of the Rings just stopped at 2, whatever the hell is that, 2 kings? If it just stopped at 2 kings, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Right, exactly. I actually made that exact comparison to my wife. We were introducing the Harry Potter films, and Matt's gonna get lost as soon as I say Harry Potter, but we're introducing them to our older kids, and I made that comparison. I said, could you imagine that if the Harry Potter film, I want to say it's 9 movies.
Holy shit.
Could you imagine if the books stopped after 2, after the second one, and then people would be like, well, what the fuck? What happens? What happens after that? Do you think people are bitching that J.K. Rowling was setting up all these additional things? No. It's a continuation. It's several books. Zack Snyder just happened to do it. He's not writing books. He's making a very in-depth film to set up for other things that, in my opinion, he was asked to do. He was asked to propel this universe And he's like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have all these different, you're going to see a different Batman. And the fact that we're not going to go over, if you want to read this article, you can read it for yourself, but he touches on the stuff with Batman and that people bitch about Batman. Well, yeah, he's broken. It's a different Batman, but he's going to come back to the Batman that we know. Just like Superman, different Superman. And it blows my mind that, and it's so frustrating that we didn't get to see this vision through. But yeah, as Matt said, if Lord of the Rings, or pick your trilogy, pick your books. If the story wasn't completed,
or Empire Strikes Back, like if it just ended there with Luke losing his hand and it's all sad, kind of like what happened with the Superman. If Empire, if he just stopped at, fucking Han Solo's off in Carbonite. I was about to call it Kryptonite for a second. He's off in Carbonite. Luke's missing a hand. Everything is just broken apart. Yeah, that, and then just say the third one was made by a completely different visionary, somebody which is the almost complete opposite idea of what should be next, which some people actually might say did happen to The Last Jedi, because they started adding in teddy bears and shit, and it was a lot more family friendly than the second one. But it's still a huge departure from what the original story was supposed to be, because it was supposed to be 2 Justice League movies. It was supposed to be back to back to back, 3 years. It was basically supposed to be BvS, Justice League 2. And he had a vision, and then he got shortcut down to Justice League 1, just to 1. So then he has to kind of sum things up, trick things back. Him and Chris Terrio, I mean, if you just look back at Chris Terrio talking about how he did all this research about the Atlanteans and all this other shit, it's just crazy how much information these guys absorbed and put into the script to build to build a continuous story. This was going to be like a series. Think of it like a TV series where it just keeps going, but it's not boring like Krypton. It would have been a lot more fucking interesting.
Ooh, shots fired.
It would have been a lot more, but no, people just, I'll never agree with Henry Cavill's comment where he said, if Marvel didn't exist, we would still have to do better at what we do, or some shit like that. I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly, but I remember he was saying that the DC universe may not has done very well if Marvel never existed, and I just don't agree with that at all. Marvel, I'm not saying they've corrupted the system at all, but I think it has steered people in a direction to where they believe a movie should be made like that. I can't get over the fact that how many times I see that. It's like it should have been done like Marvel. Marvel's good because they make more money. They have more box office success. They're critically acclaimed. That doesn't make a movie better. If you can't talk about how the movies themselves are actually better, but your best retort is that they did better in box office, doesn't mean anything to me. Fucking Titanic and Avatar are then the 2 best movies of all time, because they've made the most money
ever.
And I haven't even seen Avatar, and Titanic's just funny.
Right. So
really,
there you go.
Subscribe. Yeah, there you go. Fuck you. I don't really subscribe to that type of shit, because then that means box office declares whether or not a movie's good or not, and that's just not true, because there's a bunch of low budget indie movies that obviously don't make that much money and stuff like that. But again, that's not a argument. Just to say that, oh look, they got a 95 on Rotten Tomatoes. That means it's way better than Batman vs Superman, which has a 27. All right, cool. All right, now what happened in that movie? You don't remember shit, do you? You'll remember fucking Martha forever.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Well, and you stop talking about it. Okay, where's my next one? Okay, $1 billion. Okay, where's my next one?
Yeah.
And, that's all it comes down to. And I mean, you could use the same comparison with anything mainstream. Look at mainstream artists. I guarantee there are mainstream artists that people hate. I know our good friend Tommy hates Katy Perry. She makes a shit ton of money, but he fucking hates her. Does it mean because she makes a ton of money that she's better than all these other artists that are more underground? No, not in the least bit. So the fact that because a movie makes so much money means it's better, it just is, it's crazy. I will never understand that mindset or that approach. As Matt said, it's just it's insane, and it's unfortunate that someone who decided to go out on a limb and go more into depth and give more connection on these characters, now giving even more detail. And this is just bonus. This is just bonus Easter egg stuff that he is now just contributing. It's bonus scenes to additional bonus scenes to the bonus scenes in my eyes, that it's just cool, to now know that like, oh, he places a painting, a very specific painting, for no other reason, just to add to the scene itself. And some people are going to get it, but most aren't. But he's like, you know what, I'm going to throw this in here because he's just that type of director, and it's
just for
awesome.
those individuals that will. It gives those people a sense of pride, a little bit. I mean, we even talked about this a little bit with Batman versus Superman. Like, to understand like the Flash scene with the Speed Force and stuff like that. I mean, you need to be a tad bit comic savvy. You need to know this material a little bit. And I think we've even talked about it. It's kind of a little bit of a selfish thing that we get this. We get what's going on. The nightmare scene, I pretty much took it as, okay, it's a Speed Force situation. Flash is coming back in time. I guess it could be a little bit confusing because the way Bruce acts like he keeps waking up over and over again. I guess I can understand that might be a tad bit confusing, but I get what the movie's doing. I get what they're trying to go at, and I get what the Bruce Wayne character is supposed to be. It's supposed to be that level beyond what we've seen in previous Batman storylines. It's the guy that's at the end of his rope. For some reason, that just went over people's heads, and I don't ever want to say that people just don't understand the movie. And that people are dumb and shit like that. I guess with the mainstream audience and stuff like that, there's not always a chance that these mainstream audiences are gonna watch a movie more than once. They pay their $10 to go see the movie, and that's the last time they see the movie. And that's kind of where a movie like this isn't going to be in your wheelhouse. And that's the point. I've never said that Zack Snyder is mainstream. I think anybody can agree that he is not a mainstream artist, but doesn't mean that his vision or what he does is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I also, to your point, I don't agree with the fact that, some DC fans are saying, oh, well, you're just too stupid to understand the movie. And I mean, I'm not intelligent by any means. I'm sure if you listen to this show long enough, you would have guessed that. And our listeners are going, no shit. but the fact that I brought this up on the show before, that I went to see Batman v Superman for the first time with a group of non-comic book readers, and they walked out of it confused as all shit. And it did kind of give me a sense of pride of like, I understood that, and this movie wasn't for you. And had they enjoyed it, to like, oh, that was a fun movie, then it would almost kind of take away. And that sounds kind of arrogant and hipster, but that's kind of how I felt of like, oh, I understand this stuff. Let me explain it to you. And then they start understanding it. Like, oh, what about this scene? What about this scene? And it was fun. It was fun for me to understand it that way. And then even I had to do more digging and watching it again. And I've both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, I walked out of there going, that was interesting. There's more to it. Not as, as appreciative as I am of them now after watching them, because there's so much detail in it. You have to watch them multiple times. You're not going to gain like, oh yeah, I love this freaking movie. I mean, maybe some people did. Maybe it was enough for some people and then they continued to watch it. But I was hooked. But I knew that there was a lot of detail that I missed. And then you go back and you watch it again, and you're like, holy shit. Then, and then the ultimate cut comes out, and you're like, holy shit, there's even more, So it just keeps going, and there is a sense of, of hipster of like, yeah, I understand it, and for that aspect. And if you want to, then research. It's the same thing with like Star Wars. If you've never seen Star Wars before and you're confused as shit after the first one, watch it again. And then watch it again, then do research, and the internet, Google is your best friend. Learn about this stuff, and then eventually you can appreciate the movie. Unfortunately, people are just like, oh no, I'm good. I have a good friend who said after watching the ultimate cut as well, he said, I would like the 3 hours of my life back after watching that movie. And I said, I really feel that if you were to continue to give it another chance, which he won't, but if you did, that you would learn to appreciate it over time, and then that's where it is. He'll never continue to watch it, but I'm like, hey, you're lost, kind of thing. So
definitely. I mean, it took me a couple views to even catch a couple. It takes several views to catch a couple things. Like the one of the big ones that I think a lot of people misinterpret is like when Superman saves the woman during the Day of the Dead fire and stuff like that, the De La Muerte or whatever the hell it's called, and then the people are surrounding him with the skeleton masks and shit like that, and the look on his face and stuff like that. And people have always like talked shit about it, like Henry Cavill's acting is so terrible at this point and everything, and like no one just seems to understand like. like, and Zack Snyder even confirmed this later on, is like, that's the representation of all the people that died in Metropolis. See, he's bringing this from the first movie, the deaths and the problems he had from the first movie into the second one. It's these extra things, like, people just don't catch it. And you do. Sometimes you need that extra viewing every once in a while. And it just, unfortunately, people just don't give it that chance. There's some people that won't even watch the ultimate cut. They just saw the theatrical cut, which is just, it's not the version to see. It's chopped up. Yep. It's confusing. It's not the version to watch. Ultimately, we're rambling on because we love talking about this shit. So
yeah, exactly. This for just a little behind the scenes for people. This was supposed to be a 20-minute episode for YouTube, but it's a podcast now. So yep. But there we go. Yeah, we could go on forever and ever. That's why eventually we said, fuck it. We're not even going to read this article. We're just going to continue to give our perspective. You can read the article if you want, but I definitely recommend following Zack Snyder on Vero, continuing to follow the stuff that's been coming out. There's some great pages, heroic.gateway, the nice cast there on Instagram. They do a great job kind of giving screenshots of all the interactions with some of Zack Snyder and his fans. I think DC Olympus, I want to say, is another really good one on Instagram. So check them out. It's just fun. It's fun for people who do appreciate these movies, and that's what makes them so intriguing and so wonderful. You know, for lack of a better term, for us, is that there's so many layers, and we can continue to enjoy it years and years after it's been released. So
even our longtime listener, Lantern2814, he was one of the guys that got his question answered by Zack Snyder.
Holy shit, I did not know that.
Yeah, I actually just watched his video on that. He was Alex something. I'm sorry, address or something like that. He was the one about the beautiful lie. So he got his question. Okay. He got his question answered by Zack Snyder because he was able to jump on there right away. So as long as you can get on there and talk to him, he'll answer your question. Yeah,
and congrats to him as well, because he was also included in this piece of shit CBR.com article.
Oh yeah, your name is plastered right on there, man.
Yeah. So that's good stuff.
Sue him.
Congrats to you. Yeah, exactly.
All right. In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. You're one of very few to make it to the end.
Yes, thank you very much.
Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Comic Movie Marks Podcast and hit the notification bell. You know, all these fucking YouTube channels say this shit, so I'm going to say it now.
Yes, it's perfect. And if you want to hear our full podcast, you can check out our podcast on iTunes or any other podcast subscription service.
Make sure you subscribe. Thanks again.